Hey friends, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry.
And I'm Irene.
We live off-grid on our 43-acre homestead here in northern Arizona, 1 mile above sea level. We're about 60 or 70 miles south of the Grand Canyon. We have 4 seasons and it's kind of nice. Tonight, we're going to be making some
Jalapeno jelly.
It's a very simple recipe. It takes some red bell pepper, some green bell pepper, some jalapenos, lime juice, sugar, and
Liquid pectin.
liquid pectin.
Right, and we will can it when we're done. We'll water bath can it.
And one more thing, red wine vinegar.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to have some good red wine vinegar. You don't want to use something really cheap. And for heaven's sake, don't use cooking wine or cooking vinegar.
No, that would be terrible.
All right, could you go ahead and get 2 tablespoons of lime?
Okay.
You'll notice I'm wearing gloves. Our next door neighbors in New Mexico many years ago were roasting and cleaning green chilies. And they had green chili stuff on their hands. Well, he didn't wear gloves. And later on that night, we heard, woo! They found out about capsicum, that is the juice from chilies, on tender skin. And we don't want to do that.
Not volunteering for that one.
I want to make sure that all the seeds are out of these jalapenos because the seeds contain a lot of heat. And while I want there to be some heat in this jelly, I don't want it to be lighting up your life. Now to make this recipe, I'm going to put about 2/3 of a cup of jalapenos into, ooh man.
I'll just here to sniff my hand and say, it's much safer.
I'm using a paring knife to remove the ribs and the seeds before I chop the jalapenos up. And the ribs of chili peppers also contain a fair amount of hot stuff. I'm not worrying too much about getting all of the ribs out. I do want to get most of them out. And I'm not going to worry if I have a few seeds from the jalapeno that goes into the jelly.
Now, if there were ghost peppers, you might be, This is jalapeno jelly. It's only supposed to be flavorful, not painful.
You can modify this recipe to use other peppers or no jalapenos, or I've never had notapenos, that's a jalapeno style pepper without the heat. If you're just looking for the flavor, you can do that too.
Okay, I have a little bit more than 2 tablespoons of lemon juice here.
Lime juice, right?
Lime juice, rather. They were juicier than you might anticipate.
That'd be great.
Anything else you need?
I will need some red wine vinegar. It is 1 cup of red wine vinegar. And put that in the pot, and then we'll need to add the sugar.
Okay. Okay, so I can dump in the red wine vinegar?
Yes.
Okay, do I dump in the lemon or the lime juice too?
Yes.
Okay. That's 5 and...
I have.
I have, yes. Remember, this is jelly. Jelly, jelly, jelly. That's why I got out the storage sugar. I wouldn't have that much sugar in the regular container unless I just filled it up.
Now, I learned something the other day. When you're a home cook, you work really hard to save every little bit of food that you can. So when you're Peeling potatoes, you don't want to have a lot of potato going down into the disposal or in the compost. And when you're cutting up a bell pepper, you don't want to lose a lot of the bell pepper flesh. Well, if you're a professional cook cooking in a restaurant, you're going to do things a little differently. You're not going to want to be spending a lot of time. So you don't try to optimize your use of the vegetables. One of the things that you can do with the bell pepper is you can cut down the lobes of the bell pepper. That leaves a skeleton with the seeds in the middle. That's a whole lot faster to prepare than coring it and cutting it up. When you're cutting a vegetable like the bell pepper, it's easy to have your knife slip. One way to avoid that is to smash the bell pepper down so that the entire pepper is flat on the cutting board, or pretty flat. I hold it down with my 3 fingers and thumb. Well, I now have 1½ cups of chopped green bell pepper, 1½ cups of chopped red bell pepper, and 2/3 of a cup of chopped jalapenos. We're about ready to start putting this really together so we can get it cooked and be ready to put it in jars. Looks very Christmassy. All these red and green colors. It's really gorgeous. I need to get a blender because we're going to do one more step once this thing is hot. I've just moved the pot from one side of the stove to the other because Irene's going to be bringing out a water bath canner in just a little bit, and we'll be canning on the left-hand side of our range. Doesn't that look gorgeous? And there's a lot of ways to whiz up food. One is with a regular food processor, another one is to use an immersion blender. I'm going to use an immersion blender here.
Let's see, is this supposed to be 4 cups for a single batch? 3 cups. Okay, so I'll have plenty. I wanted to make sure I had enough jars here. Because there's very few things more annoying than having to run go get jars when you're trying to.
Well, the next step in making this jelly is I need to boil this mixture, and I'll tell you when we need to be putting in the pectin. This is a special kind of pectin. It's a liquid pectin, and it has to be done in a very specific way in order for it to gel. So we're going to make sure we follow those instructions very, very closely. Well, it's time for us to add the liquid pectin. It's really important that you do it in this order and that you use liquid pectin. Each of these packs has enough for half of the batch that we're making, which will be exactly the amount that you need for the batch that we'll put in the recipe.
This is science, not art, so you have to actually follow the rules. Otherwise it won't gel right. You don't want this to gel hard as a rock. I mean, it's not bad if it gels hard as a rock, but it's better if it doesn't.
Now that we have the pectin in, I need to heat the almost jelly over medium-high heat. On our range, that's at a lower setting than you would use at home. But the point is to bring this back to a boil. We're starting to have a little bit of bubbles come up. It's not to a rolling boil yet. I want it to go ahead and get to a good boil, and then I'll turn it off and we'll start putting it into jars. You know, in yesterday's show, I think it was yesterday's show, we talked some about when you cook. You do the things that you do when you cook. Well, making jelly is something that does take a little bit of practice, takes a little bit of time, and some patience. It's not a big deal, it's not really hard to do, but you do need to follow the instructions. It's nothing worse than having jelly that doesn't gel.
Right.
Well,
Makes pretty good syrup, actually, but depends on. I used to purposefully make strawberry syrup when the kids were little for use on pancakes because we had so many strawberries available to us. But that was on purpose. But I have had jelly only once or twice that didn't gel right.
well, I'm ready to start jarring this jelly up.
Okay.
Now this stuff is going to be hot. It's not going to be as hot as it could be, but it does have sugar in it, so there's going to be a tendency for it to be warmer than you think.
Yeah, you have to. Some of the worst burns I've ever gotten was actually making apple jelly, having it splash on my forearm because it sticks. And you have to scrape it off. So whatever the temperature of the jelly is when it's boiling, which is how it's splashed, is what temperature it gets on your arm. Highly not recommended.
Now the recipe we're making right now will make, probably 6 or 7 small jars of the jelly. We put this jelly into 1-cup jars.
Mm-hmm. With a 1/4-inch headspace. I clean the edges of the glass. I've already checked this glass before it went into preheat. I preheated the jars to make sure that they were ready to go. I also preheat the lids and not the lids, the lids and the. You don't need to preheat the rings. The water, it will be processed in a water bath for 20 minutes. If we were at sea level, we would do it for 10 minutes. And that's another part of the rules and regs that you have to read. There's a lot of people who make fun of rules and regs, but sometimes they're there for a reason. In this case, it's to keep you safe. Make sure any molds, mildews, or anything else are killed by the right temperatures. And since water boils at a lower temperature at high altitude than it does at sea level, it's an important concept. You'll notice that Henry is scraping off some bubbly scum from the top of the jelly as he's working over there. That is completely edible. It just doesn't look good. So we will keep it for our own use. But by removing it, it means that the jelly that goes into the jars will be nice and clear and pretty looking, just in case any of it goes away as presents.
Is that 5 jars so far?
Yes, it is.
If I scrape this out, we'll have the last jar completely full.
Awesome. We really like this. And the original recipe is, I won't say it's not worth the effort, but we like to have a whole bunch of it on hand and just not have to worry about fussing and making another batch. We can't always get good-looking peppers and jalapenos in the store, so it's nice to be able to choose when you do it based on the quality of the vegetables you can get.
That's it.
Cool. It's funny, I was looking at the 2 different sizes and I said, no, I don't need the big canner. This is enough. The big canner hasn't been used in a while. It's so dusty. This one's not too bad because it's been used relatively recently. Okay. Now, we have
I have a timer set over here.
Okay. That's going to be good.
It's good right now.
Yeah, but that's going to be really good on burritos.
Well, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications because
We're going to be doing lots more.
lots more.
Lots. Got some experiments I'm going to be doing with some new flowers and things, all kinds of different things this winter, now that it's not quite as hectic. Main Christmas rush for my business is over, but there is always a post-Christmas, like people got money and they want to spend things. I'm
That's
with
good.
that. Yep. And then starting in January, I have to get ready for the beginning of February, which is an event. But it still won't be quite as hectic in the sense that we probably won't have quite as many trips to the post office and stuff like that. Hopefully.
One a day.
No, I don't want to do one a day.
Me either. Say goodbye. It's time.
Okay, so until next time, bye.
Keep brainstorming.
Obviously, we are.
No, I'm busy making jalapeno jelly. It's good.
It really is good.